Mr. Carlson, where are we here? What is this?
We're in our family barn in northern New England in the northeastern United States. And this is where our family's been here a long time, my whole life. I'm 56. And this is just our barn where we have dinners, keep our boats. And years ago, we put a studio in for Fox News. That's no longer operative, but we do the podcast from our dining room table. And this is just where everyone in my family, we're in the rural areas. We don't have trash pickup. So we have our dumpster outside. We have a hose to wash the cars. There's a bunk room right there for my nephews to come on hunting trips. And this is just sort of our family barn. Like everyone comes here.
Where's this from?
It's all inherited stuff. I didn't buy anything in here. It's all stuff that we inherited. My wife and I are the oldest in our family. So whenever someone dies, there's like, where do you put it? This is the largest building in our family.
And you do all your interviews here, right?
We do them all here, yeah. We do them all here because it's comfortable. And we have dinner. I always have dinner or breakfast with the guests before. Because if I know the guest well, we just have breakfast. But if I don't know them well, we have dinner. Multiple nights a week we'll have dinner in here, and then the next day we do the podcast because it's hard to interview someone cold if you don't really know the person. And plus, I like meeting people, and we live in a rural area, and we don't have a symphony orchestra nearby or even television, so it's like this is our entertainment. Interesting people cycle through. It's great. It's a happy life.
I saw a video of you lately. I don't know in which big American city it was, but you were walking by and people were cheering on you like a pop star, like a soccer star. At the same time, there's people who sharply criticize you for your interviews, what you're doing. Like some people.
What do you mean criticize me?
Well, like for your interviews.
You mean they're not fans?
So I would say you polarize a lot. Like,
it's not intentional.
How would you, who are you?
My name is Tucker Carlson. No, who am I? I don't know. I'm a not very self-aware person who's not running for office or trying to sell you anything. I'm a middle-aged man whose kids are grown, married to the same girl for 34 years next month. And I just I don't have a lot of goals really at this point in life. I just want to say what I think is true with the ever-present knowledge that I could be wrong, as I have been many times in the past. But I think the promise of America is the First Amendment, is freedom of speech. It's not simply just a bullet point on a list of rights. In our system, it is considered a God-given right, and the purpose of government is to protect that right. It's a totally different orientation from anything in Europe. And I do think Europeans share a lot of Enlightenment-based assumptions that we Americans have, but our system, encoded in our system, is a slightly different belief. And just to restate, that belief is that certain rights, as our documents describe them, are inalienable. They cannot be taken away. You're born with them because you're created by God. And God bestowed those on you. And so the only purpose of government is to protect those rights. That is the American system, in a sentence. And I believe in it. I'm from here, and my family's been here a long time. The state we're living in, my mother's family came here in 1690 or something. So not long by European standards, but for America, it's a while. And I completely believe in our system. I think it's been distorted and corrupted, of course, as all human systems are. But I think Americans are basically good people in the most beautiful place on the planet. I've been everywhere, I can say that. I think it's the prettiest place. And I think we have the best system. And so my goal is to try to preserve that system simply by exercising the core right it bestows, which is the freedom of speech. That's it.
If you meet a German like me, I mean, I know you because I'm following your podcast and what you've been doing in the past years, but you meet a German here in a bar in Maine, and he asks you, what are you actually doing? What would you answer?
Not doing anything. So that's the funny thing. I'm not a planner. I'm not, I don't live in the future in my mind. If anything, I live in the past too much, but my orientation is, complete. What I'm doing is unrelated to any specific goal. I'm not running for office. I'm not trying to.
You mentioned this now a second time because so many
because
people
have been
discussing
hitting me recently with, oh, you running for
2028, they say.
By the way, if I wanted to run for something, I guess I would just say I'm running for something. I mean, I try to be straightforward. For all my faults, I think I'm pretty straightforward.
So 100%, you're not running 2028?
Of course not. Running for office? No. I mean, I could have worked in a couple of different governments. Well, probably many governments. I mean, I got to D.C. in '85. My dad worked for the government, and I was there until 2020. And so that's 35 years, and I never had a single moment of interest.
Why not?
I'm just not suited for it. I mean, it's not, obviously I look down on most politicians. I think they're deceptive, they're liars, and I think there are a lot of other problems with them. Not all, but the overwhelming majority. But it's not just that. It's the system itself is just not something that I think I would be good at. I'm not interested in politics. I never have been interested in, how do you raise this amount of money or get this number of votes or appeal to the Filipino-American lesbian community or, dividing up your country by different demographics or interest groups. Like my brain doesn't work that way. I'm not interested in it. And I don't have a lust for power.
But you have power.
Oh, I don't know that I do, but any power I have, I mean, it's nice to see people listen to you. I do like that. I am grateful that I have a platform that allows me to speak and people hear it if they want. It was voluntary, however, and that's the difference. You don't have to listen to my show. I'm not bossing anyone around, telling anyone what to do, making decisions for anybody else, merely pointing out things that I think are true and people can use them to make their own decisions. I mean, it's a voluntary relationship. And when it becomes compulsory, when it becomes authoritarian, it just makes me uncomfortable. I have no interest in that. It's just not my nature. I'm not insecure. I'm not compensating for a bad marriage or a weird personal life by bossing other people around. And I think a lot of people in power are. I notice, certainly in your continent, but also in ours, so many leaders don't have children. They literally don't have kids. So they're running a country almost definitionally with an eye to preserving it. That's the whole point. And they have no skin in the game. And it's and then if you dig a little deeper, you find this is not always true, but it's largely true, that they have these tragic personal lives, tragic on the most basic level. Their spouse doesn't respect them. Their kids hate them. They have no real friends. That's a tragedy. I mean, that is the definition of tragedy, actually.
I would say you find that everywhere, not only with politicians, right?
Well, of course you find it everywhere, but you find it in much higher proportion among politicians, I have noticed. And so then the question becomes, well, what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at people compensating for a barren internal life, spiritual life, barren personal life. Their relationships are broken. They're compensating for all of that by fixing climate change or ending malaria in Africa or beating Putin or whatever. They externalize all of their emptiness, their sadness, and kind of cause other people to suffer as a result of that. And I couldn't find it more repulsive.
When was the last time you felt power, that you personally have power?
When one of my dogs was chasing a deer. I was walking through the woods with one of my dogs, and I have hunting dogs who also sleep on the bed, so they're pets, and I love them. And one of them, they have very strong noses. They can smell something hundreds of yards away. One of my dogs takes off after a deer, and I said to the dog, "Stop." And the dog put on the brakes immediately and came back to me. So I defeated the dog's instinct through training, and that dog's respect for me was obvious. And I felt happy about that. I don't boss my dogs around, but I love the fact that the dog respected me enough to obey. I have no human relationships like that. I don't talk to anyone in my family that way. I don't talk to anyone who works for me that way. You can ask them, they're standing right here. I don't like that. I don't like the master-slave relationship at all. I believe in equal. I am a product of Northern European egalitarian culture, Protestant culture, which is egalitarian. Every person is fundamentally equal. This is right from the New Testament, because every person was created by God. Now, some people do good things, others do bad things. Some are more flawed than others, but everybody has a soul. And so everybody on some most basic spiritual level is equal. Like, that is my core belief. That was a core American belief. This was a Protestant Northern European country in North America. And we brought those assumptions to its founding, and they have been evident my whole life until recently, where a whole new set of hierarchical assumptions, master-slave assumptions, have taken over. And they're manifest in, among many other things, the higher level of secrecy now, which is what you notice in Latin America and Eastern Europe. I've traveled a lot. And one of the main differences between cultures is, in most places in the world, Asia, the average person feels he has no right to know what his government's doing because they're in charge and he's not. In Western Europe and in the United States for centuries, millennia, people felt, no, this is my country, it's my government, you're acting by proxy on my behalf. I'm giving you the reins, but ultimately they belong to me. I have a right to know. And that assumption has completely changed. But I have not given up that assumption. I am an egalitarian. I believe that every person has the same moral value, and I really believe that. And therefore, every person has a right to speak. Every person has a right to relevant knowledge. You can't boss people around. You can't force them to go die without a really good reason. You can't just conscript people and send them off for your stupid war because you're mad at some other leader. You can't do that.
We get to that, to Ukraine, but let's talk first.
I want an amen here.
Yeah, well, I was in Ukraine a lot, but like...
No, it's not about Ukraine. Yeah. It's about how you treat other people. You can't just tell someone, leave your wife and kids and go die because I say so. What? Do you think he's a human being? No, you don't. If you behave like that, you're not looking at a human being. You're looking at an animal, an object, a slave, someone you own. I reject that completely. You want me to go die for you? Tell me why I should. Convince me.
There's many people in Ukraine from the beginning of the war who went to the front line defending Kiev, went there, and nobody had to force them. But I wanted to, we'll talk about it.
And right now, where are we now?
Well, complicated
how many
situation.
25-year-old Ukrainian men are left? And how many are anxious to continue fighting this war? Are there any?
There is people who are anxious, you're right. But there's also many people I meet at the front line who tell me that they want to fight and they say this independently.
And by the way, it's not just Ukrainian. But why are they rounding up young men and middle-aged men and men with Down syndrome, and it's on video, I think those are real, and throwing them into vans and driving them to their death? I don't understand that. Why is that okay?
There's a lot of videos around, like on Telegram, on X, I see them myself. But if you talk to people in the country, it's not that nobody wants to fight and that they all,
I'm sure many people do want to fight.
Yeah.
I'm taking your word for it. I'm just saying, what about the man who doesn't want to fight? Mm-hmm. I don't understand, where does Zelensky, who's not elected, who has stayed past his expiration date, he does not have the mandate of his people. I don't think anyone would argue that he does. And if he does, then why don't we have a referendum tomorrow on his leadership? Where does he get the power to send men to their deaths? It's not about Zelensky or Ukraine. It's a fundamental question about the relationship of the individual to the state, which is, where do you get the authority to kill me? Where does that come from? And no one asks that. And I feel like it's my job to ask that.
You've been asking that. Other people have been asking that. But I wanted to
hear anyone asking that in Germany. What is this? How do you have the right to hide this from me? I don't get that. Where does that right come from?
It's not hidden. There were reports in Germany talking about that, really? that people were fleeing.
Pipeline. Who wrecked your economy? Every time I bring that to a German, and I am very...
Well, there's many reports about it. But Mr.
Many reports!
Well, I mean, they're still investigating, and
really?
Yeah, the German authorities. And there's the latest reports came out from the journal saying that Ukraine is behind it. So I know you have a different opinion on that. But I have one question, Mr. Carlson, because we were talking about
curiosity.
We'll come back to that because we will. Because we were talking about power, and the last time I saw that you have power yourself now as Tucker Carlson, who has a lot of viewers, a lot of people listening to him, was when I was in Milwaukee last year. The national convention.
Big German population.
Absolutely. And I was there. I was listening to you and others during the convention where Trump was nominated and you were on stage and people were cheering. And I was like, Wow. So what was your role there?
When you're on stage, people cheer you. It's kind of part of
Not to everybody.
it's kind of part of the deal. It's just like reflexive. Oh, he's on stage. Yay! Good for you, stage guy. What was my role there? I mean, I campaigned for Trump. I voted for Trump. I don't normally vote. Don't really like voting. Sorry. But I don't usually vote. I voted for Trump. And I know Trump very well. And I have always liked Trump. And I've been frustrated with him, but I like him. And he asked me to speak at the convention, so I did. And I did not have prepared remarks because I never do. And I really believe in saying a prayer and just talking, and something, you hope something true comes out. And so that's what I did. And I don't remember anything that I said because I never do, because I don't prepare it at all. And they asked me to write a speech so they could vet it. I said, I don't think I've never done that. And I've given literally a couple thousand speeches in my life. I've never done that. I don't think I can do that. And they were very nice to me and said, okay, then just don't go too long.
How important was your support to Trump during the campaign?
What do you mean?
Well, that you said publicly you would vote for him and that you liked his policy.
At all. I mean, you mean, did people vote for Trump because of me? No, I don't think so. I don't know anyone who said I was kind of thinking about voting for Kamala Harris, and then I saw your speech in Milwaukee. It's like, I don't think I had any effect at all. It had an effect on me, which was to kind of clarify. I mean, I have been a journalist my whole life since I was 22, and I have strong opinions, but I never wanted to be aligned with a politician. You need some distance.
But then you came aligned in a way.
I absolutely became aligned.
So how did this happen?
It happened because Trump was shot. That made me emotional. I thought that his response to it was remarkable. The bravery that he displayed. I talked to him the night that he was shot, and he didn't complain at all. And he said, "Yep, I'm glad to be alive." But he just was very manly about it.
But you also supported him before that.
I did, but that was the moment. So he was shot on a Saturday, and that is really the moment where I was like, "Wow, I'm gonna do whatever I can for this man," because I was so impressed by his physical courage, which I think is essential. And I think medieval Europe functioned much better than modern Europe in this one specific regard. Like, the people with the most wealth and power rode at the front of the column. Like, they got killed first. You want to have a war? Okay, then you should risk your life. That just seems like it would make sense. Of course. You can't order people into war to go die unless you're willing to die yourself. And if you're not willing to die, what are you saying? It's important, but it's not so important I put my own life at risk. That's disgusting. I think that's totally wrong. If you're going to have a war, you should be out there on the front lines, risking your life, because it's that important. And if it's not that important, don't do it. So I think it's essential. It's a kind of like prerogative of power that you be willing to risk as much as you're calling on any other person to risk. Physical courage really matters. And I know we're non-gender specific and like women are just as good leaders as men. Okay. Whatever, that's a separate conversation, but that conversation has obscured the basic requirement for leadership, which is courage. And I thought Trump displayed that.
Because you mentioned it, that you never wanted to be aligned to a politician because you are a journalist. So has this changed your understanding of journalism in the past 10, 15 years?
I mean, I've lost faith in conventional journalism. As I noted, in my 50s. You shouldn't stay in journalism into your 50s. You'll never meet, and you shouldn't, by the way. I don't know how old you are. But
only 10 more years
you
then.
need to get out now, man. You will get bitter and jaded.
Turning 40.
It's a young man's game. You should go into the energy business and become like a natural gas oligarch. Do something that interesting and useful. But
I like my job, I have to say.
Of course, it's such a fun job. I totally agree. But if you talk to any person who's been in it for 35 years, they're all disillusioned and bitter and cynical, like 100%. I mean, my dad did this, so I spent my whole life in it, and I didn't mean to stay this long. I just did, and you're not really in control of your own life. And so I have a lot of bitterness about the pretense behind journalism, which is a lie. we're totally objective. We're just trying to make everyone obey the rules. There are no rules. That's all fake. And so the conclusion that I've come to is the only way to proceed with integrity is just to tell the truth. Just period. Just tell the truth with the knowledge that you are often wrong because you're a human being, but just be as honest as you can be. That's what I don't know.
And then
journalism, I don't know, but that's what I'm doing.
So that means that you also say, I'm in favor of Trump, for example.
Exactly.
So tell the truth.
There's something weird about it.
Yeah.
I'm not like calling Trump and saying, man, if I endorse you, can you change the law to make cryptocurrency, my cryptocurrency legal or whatever? That is immoral. What I think is defensible, I don't know if it's moral or not to be involved in any of this, but what's defensible, what I feel comfortable with, is being completely transparent about my views and my motives. That's the best I can do.
How has your relationship with Trump evolved since the election?
I mean, I don't know if you would call it a relationship. I mean, I know him well. I've known him for over 20 years.
I mean, you were on the phone quite often, right?
That's for sure.
How often?
Every night. Come on. How often? I don't know. I talk to a million people all the time. I would just say this about Trump. I find him hilarious, really funny, like one of the funniest people I've ever met. I try to be a deep person, kind of shallow in some ways. And if someone is hilarious, I like him. I've always liked that about Trump. I think he's tough. I admire that. We need more of that. When, other world leaders come to Angela Merkel or that silly woman running Italy and are like, no, we need more migrants from Africa. Really? You need someone who's strong enough to be like, no, that's not our interest. We're not doing that. So weakness is the core problem of Western leadership right now. It's weakness. It's these unhappy women who have no idea what they're doing and they get bullied into doing something that's terrible for their country. Trump is tough. And so that's very important to me. And I think Trump has insights that he does not fully articulate a lot of the time, but that are important. He has this gut sense of what matters. So there are things about Trump I absolutely love and admire. There are other things that I disagree with, and I try to be honest enough to say that. So I'm not an advisor to Trump. I'm someone who likes him, who admires the things that I just described. But I'm.
When was the last time you talked to him?
2 weeks ago, probably.
About Iran, Israel?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that I don't think I've ever, all of it is on tape because people are always listening to you through your phone, okay? Which I know you know. I don't know if your viewers know that, but the bottom of your phone, the microphone, if it is possible, this is not true for everybody, but if you are a person like you who talks to heads of state regularly, there are individuals and governments that want to know what the conversation is about. And so they will use this to listen to your conversation. Just a fact, your phone calls are monitored if you are someone who's talking to powerful people. So my phone calls are monitored, obviously, and I know that. And so every conversation I've ever had with Trump, I'm sure exists somewhere in digital form and will probably surface. So you can check this at some point, probably after I'm dead. But I don't think I've ever said anything to Trump that I wouldn't say in public, ever. I've used bad language or laughed at jokes.
How was the atmosphere? I mean, if it was 2 weeks ago, there was a lot of public discussions, and Trump was talking about you in public and was saying, "Can someone please explain to that over-the-top Carlson that Iran must not have a nuclear bomb?" And then he added, "I have no idea what Carlson means. He should say it on TV so people can actually listen."
That's pretty funny.
Did that criticism hurt you, or?
I actually hadn't heard that till right now, to be honest.
I don't believe you.
I promise.
Really?
No. Someone told me he called me a kooky. That's pretty funny. I'm a little kooky, so that's okay. It doesn't hurt my feelings. Yeah, I'm not surprised that he said that. He disagreed. I mean, my view was and remains, but by the way, there have been no immediate consequences of our strike on Iran. And I'm grateful. There's been no Shiite terror attack in the United States. Our bases in all those Gulf countries have not been attacked except once in a kind of performative way. So my worries, my fears have not come true. And if that continues to be the case, I will be thrilled to be wrong. I have no pride in that at all. I just want the best for my country and for my children. So if my fears turn out to be just neuroses, great. I have no need to post facto justify that and be like, well, actually, no. If Trump was right and I was wrong, amen.
Do you think that Trump changed his opinion? Because, I mean, you talked to him in the past years about Iran, Israel, Ukraine, and now he sees it in a different perspective. Or is it the people around him?
I mean, look, I am looking at this from I'm not having to make any decisions, okay? That's not my job. There are no consequences. You know what I mean? I'm not in charge of anybody other than our staff, my family. I don't have, 5 million federal workers who work for me, whatever. And I'm not running the United States. So Trump is looking at this from a very different perspective from any other human being on the planet. And I don't have that perspective. So it's easy for me to have opinions. He has to make decisions. That's the point. I have said the same thing for many years, which is a country should act in its own interest. And I think alliances are great. I believe in getting along with my neighbors and other countries. I wish we got along with more countries. I think we're in cold wars. I have no idea why we're at some kind of weird undeclared war with Venezuela. I don't get that. I'm most mystified of all by our relationship with Russia. I don't know why Russia needs to be our enemy. I think it's bizarre. I don't think it helps the United States at all. It's really hurt us. The Ukraine war has really hurt the United States and the primacy of the US dollar. And in a lot of ways, we should be getting along with more people. That's what I think, because I think it's good for us to have allies. On the other hand, your alliances should never drive you into actions that don't help you. You should never put the lives of your own citizens at risk on behalf of another country, period.
But what if Trump says Iran must not have a nuclear bomb? That's what he said publicly in your direction.
I think a better way to say it is we don't want Iran to have a bomb. That reflects how I feel. I don't want Iran to have a bomb. I don't want anyone to have a bomb. I'm kind of against nuclear weapons, as Trump is and has said many times. He's very upset by the destructive power of nuclear weapons. But we won't allow something to happen suggests power that no man has. No president of any country has the power. No human being has the power to control the future. The future is a series of hopes and unknowns over which we have very limited control. And it's important to say that out loud. I am not God. I can do my best, and that's all I can do. I cannot determine future events. I don't care what my title is. I don't care how big my army is. The future is a series of hopes and unknowns, period. And I'd say that now. I've said that to the president. He's not the first president I've said that to. It's just a fact. And the way that leaders get into trouble is by imagining that their desires are the same as commands. I want you to do this is a valid thing to say. I will do everything in my power to make you do this. Fine. I am going to control what you do is impossible. So the bottom line is we don't have the power to determine. I wish we did. We don't. No country does. We do not have the power to determine whether or not Iran has the bomb. That's beyond our power. That's not a pro-Iranian statement. It's not an anti-Israel or anti-American. It's just a fact.
Well, you have the power to attack militarily.
Well, exactly. That's the power you have. You have the power to attack. To take out the nuclear sites you hope. And if that's the course you're choosing, then it becomes a very specific conversation about your military capabilities. What would it take to take those out? What would it take for them to rebuild them? What would it take for them to buy a nuclear weapon from, say, Pakistan or North Korea? I mean, there are all kinds of ways to get nuclear weapons. All I'm saying is any wise course of action begins with a sober and honest assessment of your own power. What am I capable of doing? How much power do I actually have? And when you lie to yourself about how much power you actually have, you get into very serious trouble. That's called hubris, and it's the downfall of every empire. It's the destruction of every great man. It's why you sleep with your assistant. You're like, I deserve this. No one will find out.
Trump said...
I mean, right? Are you tracking with me here?
Yeah. Trump said you apologized to him on the phone. Is that true?
Okay. No.
No, it's not true.
No, I will say this. I mean, great. I don't care. I really like Trump. I campaigned for Trump. Just to say it again, I agree with Trump. I have agreed with Trump on the issues. I'd be happy. I'm the first to apologize because I am the most mindful of my limits and my own absurdities and the nonsense that I have spouted over the years. Like, I don't think I'm God. And so I'm happy to apologize. And you can ask anyone who knows me. I'm an apologizer.
So you're apologizing now publicly. Do I understand
what I
right?
apologize for. I didn't attack Trump then. I disagreed with him. And I said how I wasn't, I didn't say, I don't think anything that would warrant an apology.
But that he talks publicly about you to other journalists and it goes around the world. I mean, this shows your power, no?
Power! Maybe I should stop Iran from having the bomb since I have so much power. I'll just will it into creation. No, I don't think I have any power at all. I mean,
Well, why would the president talk about you if you have no power? So, I mean...
Well, I don't even know what, power...
Power in terms of that it hurts him if you talk publicly that you criticize him.
I'm not attacking him, but I would say...
Well, you have a different opinion on Iran, Israel.
Opinion. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what does have power and it has nothing to do with me, the truth. The truth has power. And the truth, you know what the truth is because you can see it in the reaction of people when you say it. And I don't always know what the truth is, but I can see in people's reactions, if you say something that's true, it hits differently. For good or bad. You can see it when you say it. If I assess, like if I knew what your true weaknesses were, and I don't, but if I did, and I said them out loud, if I gave voice to them, I articulated them, you would be wounded by it if I said it. And the same with me. If you knew my heart and you knew what was really wrong with me and you said it out loud, it would hurt.
So do you think Trump was wounded because you said from your perspective the truth?
I'm just saying the power comes from telling the truth. And you can tell who's telling the truth because those people aren't afraid. People who lie are afraid. And I look at the leaders, especially on your continent, which I can't overstate. I mean, my ancestors are from Europe, but I love Europe. I spent a lot of the year in Europe. And I look at your leaders, Starmer, your absurd leader in Germany, all these little tiny people.
You mean Friedrich Merz or you mean Olaf Scholz? We have a new leader now.
I follow it. And I know that, both of them. I would say and I don't want to single anybody out because I consider them all midgets. But
But Trump likes him, Friedrich Merz. They had a good connection.
Who knows what Trump thinks of him? I'm just saying he's absurd.
Why?
Because if you think that the answer to Germany's many and growing problems is fighting a war with Russia, you're an absurd human being. If you can't even defend your own, first of all, if you're allowing foreign troops on your soil, you have no self-respect at all. There are 35,000 American troops on German soil. They've been there for 80 years.
Well, I would say...
What are they doing there?
Well, what would we have done without U.S. troops, I would say? I mean...
What are you talking about?
Well, they saved us.
The Soviet Union fell in the summer of 1991. You tell me what American troops are saving you from. American troops, and I love American troops. I am American, okay? I'm not against American troops. I know a lot of American troops. I'm merely saying foreign troops from another nation on your soil is degrading. It's totally degrading. And that is a basic fact that everyone knows. One of the reasons we had a revolution in this country and threw off the colonial yoke of England was because British troops were stationed on our soil, dating our daughters, degrading us. And that is a very basic fact that has been consistent through all history. When you have foreign soldiers on your soil, you do not have sovereignty. And it's very hard to have self-respect. And the fact that no one in Germany can say that, no one in Germany can say, wait a second, Prussia got eliminated in 1947 by the United States, Great Britain, and Stalin, and we've never reconstituted it? The heart of Germany? We're so embarrassed. And I'm saying this as someone who loves the Germanic people. I am a Germanic person. I don't understand how any German leader could put up with the level of humiliation that Germany has put up with for 80 years. There's no one living in Germany who's responsible for the crimes of the 1930s and 40s. I don't understand why you're continuing to pay reparations, continuing to allow your country to be occupied. I don't understand why you don't assert sovereignty. And the truth is, the Germanic peoples, and I'm including, the Dutch and the Scandinavians and a lot of the English, as I'm sure you know, all Germanic, it's all Germanic. they are what makes Europe great, actually. They're the hardest working, the smartest, the tidiest, the cleanest, the most punctual. Those are values that I think are important, actually. I don't mock those. Those are real. I don't know how people who did everything the Germanic peoples did could allow themselves to be degraded and could internalize the hate and allow it to become self-hate. And whenever you bring, even now I'm talking to you, I can tell it's making you uncomfortable. I'm saying that.
No, I don't have self-hate.
Russia, it's like,
I don't have self-hate.
but what happened to Prussia? I don't understand this, Berlin. Like, what? How could you allow a foreign power to say you can no longer have a region? And no one in the subsequent years has ever said, wait a second, this is our country. We'll call our regions whatever we want to call them. We're going to call this Prussia, and we're going to boot out foreign troops. Doesn't mean we're going to invade anyone or be invaded. We are a great country. So any leader who doesn't say that has my contempt.
Well,
that's what I'm saying.
if we talk about the situation...
Oh, he's a Nazi.
No.
I'm not a Nazi. I hate the Nazis.
If we talk about the situation right now, I would say that many Germans are happy that there is American troops on the ground.
Sure they are. They've been so brainwashed. It's so sad.
Well, they're afraid. There's people who are afraid of Russia and of Russian troops attacking.
I'm sure your whole country's afraid of Russia and Russian troops. That's the sad thing. But you're not afraid of millions of migrants who are wrecking your country? And it's a kind of weird masochism with the Germans. And it bothers me because they don't deserve it, because they're inherently impressive and have been for thousands, since they took down Rome. Who took down Rome? The Germanic tribes, because they're amazing people. I don't think they should sack Rome. I'm not saying that. I think what happened, obviously, in your country in 80 years, disgusting. I hate all that. Of course, I hate all that. It's anti-Christian, anti-Semitic. I hate everything about it. However, that doesn't mean that your culture is worthless or that you should give it up to people from
Nobody
Syria
says
and
that.
Africa. Like, what are you doing? And it's wrecking your country, and no one can say anything about it. And
Well,
what it does is like, oh, you're a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. I'm a German. I want Germany for Germans. Like, why is that bad to say?
Well,
Average
it
German,
has
you
the
ever go on a
background,
plane
yeah.
or a dinner with a German, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Why are you letting all these people into your country to live on the street, rape people, trash your country? They're like, they can't talk about it. They get so like, shut up.
Elon Musk was talking a lot about it, like during the election.
Shut up, Elon Musk, you're a Nazi.
Well, so he was in favor of the AfD during the election. He was campaigning for them.
You seem so weak to me. How about...
Do you have contacts to politicians in Germany, AfD politicians?
Not really, no. I'm just not that...
What does it mean, not really? So you have?
No, I mean, I've met people, I guess. I just travel a lot, right? But in general, it's not about AfD or social democracy or any specific party or politician. It's about a mindset that, look, we abhor things a government calling itself German, run by a guy who wasn't even German, did. That's disgusting. There are certain lessons to learn from that. Obvious lessons, which we seem to have forgotten, by the way, but whatever. There's certain lessons. I think that's important and great. I'd never make apologies for the Nazis. My gosh. But you should also never make apologies for German culture, for the long, 1,000-year history of the, not really country, but region, multi-thousand-year history of it. Like, the Germanic peoples are great. Compared to what? Compared to who? Like, you have allowed them, and it's in your school system, as you know, I'm sure you went through the brainwashing where they're like, you spend a year learning how you should hate yourself and your people.
Not really.
Not really.
Not really.
Something happened to you guys because I've never met a more masochistic people. And here's the problem with it. It offends me. So I'm not German. I don't live there, but it offends me because, and it's dangerous because if you convince someone to hate himself, and the world has convinced Germans to hate themselves, they really hate themselves. They have weird sex lives as a result, but that's not the real threat. The real threat is if you hate yourself, you're probably not going to love me, actually. It creates a kind of people who hate themselves are actually hostile toward other people. And I just think, whether it's AfD, I don't care who it is, the first German leader who stands up and says, I'm totally opposed to the Nazis, obviously, that's not even a conversation. That was 80 years ago. Are there any Nazis left? No. It's nothing to do with the Nazis. I'm pro-German. I think we should be proud of our history, our culture, our language. If you're not German, this is the indigenous population of the region. The indigenous population.
Because
if you're not part of that, you can leave. I don't know why that's embarrassing. If someone stood up in Beijing, China and said, we're proud of the millennia-long history of Chinese civilization, culture, language, if you're not Chinese, I don't know if you should be living here. Would you call that person a racist or a Nazi? No, be like, that sounds kind of legitimate.
Because you talked about our history, German history. You hosted Daryl Cooper.
Daryl Cooper! He's so dangerous!
Highly, I would say, controversial historian.
He's not highly controversial. He's one of the most popular historians on the entire internet.
Well, he claimed that the Nazis never intended to kill 6 million Jews. He said
certainly didn't claim that.
Well, he said.
Listen to the
I did. He's
feeding more shit propaganda on the internet.
I was listening to it. He said it was just an accident, and he said
did not say that. I'm sitting right there.
Let me quote that the Nazis simply didn't know how to care for that many people.
He did not say the Holocaust was an accident. He did not say that. He was speaking very specifically. And he may be wrong, by the way. I don't know. And I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying the point that he was making was a discrete, specific point about the treatment of prisoners in Poland and Russia, the East, during the war. He said, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it certainly wasn't denying the Holocaust or coming out in favor of Hitler. He was saying that the Germans rounded up all these people and let them die. And you could argue whether that's a greater crime or lesser crime or whatever, but that is not denying the Holocaust and is not pro-Nazi. And let me finish. A small number of propagandists on the internet decided to paint him as a Nazi. Now, why did they do that? Because there are all kinds of lessons that we drew from World War II that are false. And why does that matter? It matters because the Western order, the post-war order, is based on those assumptions. And one of the key assumptions, and it's destroyed your country, and I hope you reverse it, is that it is a threat to the world when a homogenous European white Christian country exists. That's just not true, okay? And it's on the basis of that assumption.
But if he says
your country and Western Europe has been destroyed by mass migration.
But that's a different topic. But if he says that Nazis simply didn't know how to take care for that many people, I mean,
he wasn't talking about the Holocaust, dude. So that's just a fact. And you can ask him, and he's been asked a million times. And his answer is really, really clear. I'm not denying that the Germans rounded up and murdered Jews. What? I'm not.
Well, it's about the plan. So he said it was more like the Wannsee conference. No, I'm not reading. I was listening to it. Yeah.
By the way,
yeah.
I could also say, I'm not responsible for Daryl Cooper's views.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
I just interviewed the president of Iran. I'm not a Shiite. You know what I mean? And you can ask Daryl Cooper, who'd be happy to take your call, I'm sure. What I'm interested in is the current state of Europe. And as a lifelong traveler to Europe, who has family in Europe, whose ancestors are from Europe, who believes in European Christian culture and has watched it be destroyed over the last 120 years since 1914, I'm wondering, like, how the hell did this happen and how do we fix it? Because I really care about it, okay? And I think that one of the factors, not the only factor, but one of the factors in the destruction of Europe was this lesson that our leaders internalized, and you were clearly taught it at school, that a homogenous country in Western Europe is a threat to world peace. That is an actual assumption that I think everyone in Europe has just sort of imbibed. And I think it is factually false and incredibly destructive. And it's the reason that Europe is increasingly non-European. And I find it so wild that you're not allowed to say that it's considered somehow Nazi or racist to say, like, what percentage of Germany will be German? And the answer in 100 years, and the answer is probably less than half. Is that okay with you? This is the indigenous population of the country. Then the question is like, well, I mean, we're all Germans. This is crazy. There's no other part of the world that is held to this absurd fantasy standard where, you know, it doesn't matter if the majority of the country is actually from that country, whose ancestors built the country, created the language, the culture, the music, the art. It's just like, shut up, Nazi. And where does that come from? That's where we are right now. Everyone is totally afraid. I am just so proudly anti-Nazi that I don't feel guilty saying it. It's just true. And why can't we say it? We can't say it because of that lesson that we learned. And it's a false lesson. So like, there are lots of false lessons that we learn from history. It's not the only one, but it's important to tell the truth, don't you think? Or no one in the media thinks it's important to tell the truth. The second you say something is true, they're like, shut up. Look, he was denying the Holocaust. No, he wasn't.
I want to talk about Putin, about Ukraine, Putin, Russia. You interviewed Putin. How was it?
It was interesting. It was really interesting. I mean, I've never been particularly interested in Russia. I was interested in the Soviet period, read a lot about it, studied in college, but post-Soviet Russia, I'm an expert and I had no plans to do it. And it was really the Ukraine war. It was my frustration at the total blockade against all information from Russia. I just felt like it was important for Americans to hear from the guy they were fighting. In fact, most Americans didn't even know we were waging a war against Russia. They're like, oh no, we're supporting Ukraine. No, we're fighting a war against Russia. Now, maybe we should be, maybe we shouldn't be, but we should at least know what we're doing. So that's why I went. I was infuriated for the first part of the interview because I thought he was manhandling me.
He was talking like 45 minutes, right?
Just blew me back.
Did you try to get into it, or like?
I tried for like one pushback, and then I was like, I can't win this. We're speaking through an interpreter, and it'll just get garbled, and I'll say half a sentence, and they'll say half a sentence, and I was just like, I'm just going to let him go.
It was a historical lecture at the beginning, right?
The historical lecture that I was not qualified to assess at all. I don't know the history of the Rus. I was pretty ignorant, actually, about Russian Ukrainian history. I know a lot post-October 1917, but from October 1917 till August of 91, I have a pretty good handle on it. But before that, I really don't. So I was highly annoyed. I thought, here I show up with Putin, and he's just treating me like a bitch. He's just like rolling right over me. And then I thought to myself, there's nothing I can do about it. And this was going through my head at the time, and just let him talk. It'll be interesting, actually, to get this on tape. I don't fully understand the importance of it, but I'm doing this not for myself or to prove that I'm virtuous. And all these reporters I've done this myself when I was a kid. You go into these interviews with some bad person, and you're like, really, the point of the interview is be like, I'm a good person. Why aren't you a good person? It's like, I don't care if people think I'm a good person. I care if my wife and children and my friends think I'm a good person.
But do you think you were critical enough with him, or
that's exactly the kind of low IQ
question
headspace I was talking about, that I once occupied, and hopefully it'll grow out of, where you feel like the point of the interview is to show like, he's bad, I'm good. And it's like, do you really need for a Western audience to make the case that Putin is bad? I really want to be the first American journalist to make the revolutionary statement that Putin is bad.
Well,
Putin's bad. You're bad.
I wouldn't say it's about how bad he is.
He's bad.
But I mean, about what he did in Ukraine. But I mean.
So what would be the point of that? To show that?
Well, I would have been interested to see his reaction. Like if he believes,
I asked him, you can go back and look at it. It's like 27 hours long or something.
I watched it all.
So I thought it was interesting. I've interviewed a lot of heads of state, and just interviewed one the other day from this building, and there's really a limit to what you can get, is the truth. And so I think, and I've thought about this, I've done this for many years, so I've thought about it a lot, and I think the best you're going to get really is the person feeling more comfortable in talking. I think what you want is, I think people become less guarded the more they talk. That has been my experience, just talking to people my whole life. And if you can calm them down a little bit and just let them go.
But Putin is a bit different, no? I mean, he was an intelligence officer. He knows how to control emotions.
They're all that's what, I'm not defending Putin, who I think has done a great job for Russia. Much better job than any German leader, that's for sure. Your country is going down, Russia's going up. You should be mad at your own leaders. You're mad at Putin instead.
Well, but
makes me laugh.
Putin is a war criminal instead.
He's a war criminal, right. Angela Merkel wrecked your country through mass migration, but she's not a criminal?
Well,
how does that work? She literally wrecked your country. It will not recover in your lifetime or mine, but she's cool because why?
I didn't say she's cool, but I mean...
She's a criminal.
But you can't...
She's a criminal. She let millions of people into your country.
I would say...
Didn't and it hasn't worked. So whatever.
Yeah.
They're all criminals. I kind of agree with that. But let me just say this: the intel. He's an intel officer. Putin's smart. He's Slavic. I'm not Slavic. It is a different way of thinking. That's just true. I know you spend a lot of time in Slavic countries. It's hard for the non-Slav to kind of understand the way that people think. Different cultures think differently. I don't know if we're allowed to admit this or not. Even Finland, they think differently. And so it's hard to know exactly, right? And there are many layers of deception. He was a KGB officer in Germany. I think that's actually a really important part of his biography that people misread, but whatever. Here's the point. It's no different from any other long-serving leader in that what he says and does is heavily determined by the imperatives of the intel agencies he runs. They're all intel officers, actually. He's been in there for 25 years. If he was a KGB officer in East Germany, okay, got it. The truth is he's been running that country for 25 years, so they all think the same. They all do. I mean, you've interviewed a bunch of these guys.
Why do you think he talked to you?
I don't know. I mean, my gosh, I didn't even understand the history of the Rus. I can't divine his motives. I think he talked to me because I don't know. I mean, I would imagine that it's crazy to, I'm not mad at Putin. Never have been.
I am.
Yeah. Okay. You should be mad at your own leaders. You know, Putin didn't let in millions of immigrants to Germany and hate.
I mean, his soldiers killed friends of mine, colleagues when I was in Ukraine. So that's
friends die in war. They were ordered into war by American leaders. So I had a good friend die in the Iraq War. And so am I mad at Saddam Hussein? No. I'm mad because he wouldn't have been there. It's a guy from Washington, D.C., Northwest Washington, D.C., and he's in Baghdad. Why was he in Baghdad? He was in Baghdad because George W. Bush was pushed into supporting a war that nothing on the left. So I think what we're being trained to do, and you clearly are the victim of this, is quite a sophisticated operation, is to channel people's frustration into directions that serve the people who caused the frustration in the first place. Your country's a mess because your leaders suck. That's the fact.
Well,
but you're mad about that, so they take your anger and they're like, oh no, it's Putin's fault. It's Putin's fault. Okay, got it.
I disagree. I disagree.
It's like that's incontestable.
Not really, because it's two different things. One is the migration crisis. The other thing is what happened in Russia, and I can see it from different perspectives. But I wanted to talk to you about Putin a little bit longer.
So look. I think I'm just incorrigibly American. I'm interested in the world, but I'm really just American, and I always try to remember that. I just have an American point of view, and everything about me is American. And from my perspective, my people, the population of the United States and the West, but America, needed to hear from the guy they were fighting. And you can hate him all you want. I don't care if you hate Putin. I'm not emotionally connected to any of this. He's not my president. But you hate him or love him. You're also allowed to love him if you want.
I mean, I would love to interview him, obviously, because we're both journalists.
We should hear from people and allow our audience, our readers or our viewers to make up their own minds because, once again, they're not slaves, they're citizens, and they have an absolute right to know what their government is doing with their money in their name. And that's our job, is to bring that information to them.
I agree with you on that. It's super important to hear what Putin has to say.
It's literally the only reason. We are serving our audience. That's it. And most journalists lose track of that. And the hate I got, not that I ever talked to other journalists, because there's no one dumber or more tiresome than a journalist. I hate to say that. It's true. You're the first journalist I've talked to in a long time.
And how dumb do you think I am?
I'm just upset about what's happened to Germany. It really matters. It really matters. You can't allow your allies to destroy your main source of cheap energy and then pretend they didn't do it just because you were taught in school to hate yourself because of the Second World War.
Okay, but
repeat after me.
Yeah.
You cannot allow your allies to destroy your main source of energy, your economy, and move BASF off out of your country. Because this is so bonkers what you're allowing NATO to do.
Just to understand.
Why are you allowing this?
Just to understand. So you still think that the U.S. is behind the Nord Stream attack?
It's a distinction without a difference. So what we know is from our CIA, which has announced it, and I don't think the German government has denied it, it wasn't Putin who blew up his own pipeline. Okay.
Well, it looks like the Ukrainian did it.
Okay. So what is Ukraine? Is it a sovereign country? No, it exists at the pleasure of NATO. And that would be two main countries, the United States and Germany, its most important NATO ally. Now, there is a provision in the NATO agreement, which is often invoked in conversation, that says when a NATO ally is attacked, the other nations of NATO, the signatories to the treaty, defend that nation. So here you have a situation where Germany was attacked in the largest act of industrial sabotage in human history. It was also the largest man-made CO2 emission in history. By the way, I thought we were worried about the climate. Apparently not. And the United States did that. Now, whether they did it through the Norwegians or through the Ukrainians, it doesn't matter. The Biden administration said they were going to do it, and they did it. And they never denied it. And Germany sat there and allowed its main NATO ally to attack it. And then whenever you bring it up, as I have many times, like, hey, German guy I'm having dinner with, like, what the fuck was that? Why did you allow your NATO ally to destroy your main source of cheap energy? And they're like, oh, shut up. And it's like, get some self-respect. Demand baseline treatment that any human being would demand. Don't lie to me. Don't sabotage my economy. Don't pretend to be my ally when you're actually hurting me. Like, the world would be a lot safer and happier and more prosperous. I mean, Germany leads Europe. Germany is Europe. That's my position as a non-European. It's like, that is Europe. And if Germany dies, if its economy dies, and it's dying, as you know, everyone's lying about it, but it is, then Europe is gone. And Europe is the light of the world. It's the light of the world. Everything from the printing press to democracy, everything that we care about comes from Europe. And it's lost confidence in itself. And why is it up to me, an American who doesn't even speak German, to be like, oh, Germany, please don't commit suicide? Why? Because I think it's so important for the world. And it makes you so uncomfortable when I'm saying,
No.
oh, is this Nazi stuff?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm just listening. I just don't want to interrupt you all the time.
If I had a German accent, and I wish I did, if I spoke like Henry Kissinger, every time I spoke, I would go like this. I'm just listening.
Talking about Putin. After your interview, I mean, it's been now...
Nicotine?
Oh, no, thank you. Yeah, please. So it's been 1.5 years now since your interview with Putin, and now we see a shift of Donald Trump. Is it a shift? I mean, the 50 days he gives Putin to react on a ceasefire and saying, if that's not happening, we put on tariffs on countries doing business with Russia. What's your opinion on that?
This is Thursday in mid-July. I've lost track of what the date is. I don't know when this is going to air. This is a moving target. This is evolving as we're speaking. So I'm not privy to any details that you're not privy to, but I don't know where this is going. But I would say that the outcome, look, we need to be honest about where this is going to wind up in the end. There are two places it could wind up. One is with, Russian victory. They've already won in a lot of important ways. They were always going to win because...
Well, I would disagree on that because, I mean...
The population is 100 million more people.
Yeah, this is an argument, but wait, if you say they've won, that means they reached all their targets. No, like the 4 regions plus Crimea, they also wanted to be in Kiev.
That's a totally fair point. What is winning? It's hard to imagine Ukraine is getting all of its land back that it had February 3 years ago, whatever. This has clearly destroyed Ukraine. I think it's really hurt Russia as well. We can't get a clear number on casualties. Everyone lies about it. All the people tell you how much they love Ukraine, and my heart bleeds for the Ukrainians. Can't tell you how many Ukrainians have died. They don't care enough to find out. So they're frauds, and they have blood on their hands, in my opinion. But whatever. I'll stop demoralizing. Here's the point: how do you get out of this? Now, I think it serves the interests of a lot of European leaders, including your leader, to continue it as long as possible because it gives their domestic populations an enemy to focus their hate on. So as their economies are dying, young people can't afford homes. Energy costs in Europe, particularly in Germany, but also France and Spain, also the UK, are so much higher than they were 30 years ago. The whole people's standard of living is declining really fast. As you know, people are not having children. That's the clearest sign of civilizational collapse, obviously. So there's a lot of pent-up rage, and in Germany, a lot of it, as I've said 10 times, is self-hatred. There's a lot of rage in Europe, and I feel it every time I'm there. And so the Russia-Ukraine war is a perfect safety relief valve for European leaders to be like, no, it's Putin's fault. And you watch a kind of sad response in the UK when Starmer started to say, no, we're going to fight a new war against Russia. Now, they can't beat Russia. Russia could stomp the UK in one day. It's a joke, okay? No, they could nuke it. They could hit it with hypersonic missiles. It's a tiny island. I don't know if you've been there.
Yeah.
Right.
But
so in real life, in military terms, it's not a real fight between the UK and Russia. Why is he saying that? And why would beating Russia be on the even list of things to do if you're British? Because your people have been betrayed by you, and turning their rage eastward towards some guy who's got nothing to do with anything happening in the UK or Germany is the fastest way to keep your population in their narcotic haze. Okay.
Totally disagree on that, but it's not important.
That's obviously true.
No, it's not. Because
that's not true.
I mean,
what's the threat from Russia?
Well, if you talk to intelligence people, if you talk to the military,
talk to the intelligence. They're not liars.
I mean,
I need to check in with German intelligence more often to find out.
I mean, German intelligence is not as good.
Blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. But do they know?
I mean,
you've been talking to intelligence. What do they say about the Nord Stream pipeline?
Well, I think they're pretty sure that the Ukrainians did it.
The Ukrainians did it.
Yeah, but let's now talk about the risk of. Well, wait, Mr. Carlson. Let's talk about the threat. I mean, the threat, and if Russia could also attack NATO countries. I mean, that's the argument from
Russia will attack NATO countries if they keep poking them, for sure. So why would you want that? Why would you want Latvia to be vaporized?
So you think that NATO countries provoking Russia, and that's why they would attack?
Putting Ukraine into NATO is insane. It doesn't serve the interests of Ukraine.
But it's not happening.
Sure. The reason we had this war in the first place is because the vice president of the United States went to the Munich Security Conference, which I think is in your country. Munich is part of your country. Prussia was eliminated, but not Munich. It's still there. And it was in Munich that February. And Kamala Harris, I'm not attacking her, she says what she's told to say, says to Zelensky at a press conference, we want you in NATO. Russia's greatest fear, check the tape. Russia's greatest fear, as articulated by Putin, but not just Putin, also Yeltsin, has been that Western American, NATO's American weapons, nuclear weapons would be on its eastern border.
Scholz, Macron, everybody was against Ukraine being in NATO. They were always blocking it. Even Merkel before blocked it. So
I'm highly aware of that.
Yeah.
What they really think about it is another question.
Well, I think Merkel really opposed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But of course I know that. But I also know that days before this war broke out, before Russia rolled across the border into Ukraine, the U.S. government said officially, we want Ukraine in NATO. And that's what started this war. Putin said that immediately afterward. He gave a speech, which I refer you to, which is really interesting. We're not allowed to listen to Putin because everything he says is a lie or something.
I think this decision was made already before. I mean, we can...
Okay. It may have been made already before. The threat from the Russian perspective, and to acknowledge someone else's perspective, is not to endorse that perspective. It's merely to understand it, which is a critical component of decision-making. From the Russian perspective, the threat is NATO moving eastward. Putin has been president since 2000. The president with Medvedev, whatever, but has been in charge since 2000. He has said that to every American president. Yeltsin said it before him. From the Russian perspective, they gave up their empire. Their empire collapsed. They ran out of money. They moved. A lot of things happened, which I'm sure you're aware of. But what never changed was the Russian insistence that you not put nuclear weapons on a border. And I think every country but Germany, which has American troops on its border, should get them out immediately. Every normal country is like, that's not acceptable. How could you allow your rival to put nuclear weapons on your border? We would not accept that in the United States. If China put nuclear weapons in Tijuana, Mexico, that would be a crisis for us. The Soviet Union put nuclear weapons in Havana, Cuba, 90 miles from the United States in 1962, and we almost had a thermonuclear war over it. So that's a legitimate perspective. That's a legitimate concern from the Russian perspective. No matter how pro-NATO you are or anti-Russian you are, you can understand that's a real thing. That's not a bullshit thing. It's not like woke up in the morning and like, we need to expand the territory of the world's largest country. Let's take Poland. Do you really think that? Do you really think the Russians want Germany? Do you think that? Do you think there's a threat that they're going to invade Germany?
No, I think
take out the American.
I think there is a threat that they might invade or try and test Estonia, for example, or other Baltic states after they've done that with Ukraine.
Or you're willing to risk nuclear war in the defense of Estonia.
I'm not saying this. I'm just saying there is a threat of it that they might.
What I'm saying is we are now on the cusp of a nuclear conflict between the United States and Russia. It emerged 3 days ago that the President of the United States and I don't know if you call him President, Zelensky, who's in charge of Ukraine, had a conversation in which they discussed missiles that could hit Moscow.
You're talking about the Financial Times report where
correct,
Trump asked.
Not been denied.
Exactly, yeah.
By the White House. So if there was a Financial Times report that Putin and Xi were discussing missiles that could hit Washington.
So let's talk about this report. Yeah.
That would, as an American, that would lead me to believe we're on the brink of a conflict. And by the way, we need to go to war with anyone who's threatening our capital city with missiles. Are you joking?
So let's talk about this conversation.
Has there ever been a report that Putin is targeting any German city with missiles?
I mean, there's constant reports and Russian TV.
Let me just.
Well, in Russian TV. Well, do you ask me a question or not?
Oh, sorry, you're right. I did. So, you got me all the fun up here.
So there's many reports in Russian TV actually saying we have to attack Berlin. We have to nuke them. I mean, it's not Putin himself, but it's a propaganda TV.
And to make you my point, which is, of the many kind of truly contemptibly childish assumptions people have about the world and international relations, the one that drives me the craziest is that there are absolute leaders. There are no absolute leaders in this world or in your home. Every leader that included Joseph Stalin and Mao Zedong, every leader that includes MBS in Saudi Arabia, MBZ in Emirates, doesn't matter what you call yourself or what, whether you're a king, it doesn't matter. You have constituencies and you have to balance those constituencies. And that's true for Putin too. And I'm just telling you what anybody who knows anything about contemporary Russia will tell you, which is Putin is very mad at the West. He's less mad at the West than anyone else who might replace him.
Let's talk.
That's the truth. Putin, there's no evidence that Putin wants to bomb Berlin. You know that, or London or Washington. But there's a lot of evidence that Ukraine and the United States are thinking about, openly talking about bombing Moscow. And I'm just saying, whether you think that's a good idea or not, that's nuclear war. Okay, that's nuclear war. What does that mean?
Okay, let's talk about this report. So it was a discussion between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky, and it's reported that Trump asked Zelensky, could you target Moscow? Could you target St. Petersburg? Is that the Trump you know? Are you surprised?
I wasn't. If that conversation is real, I'm shocked by the recklessness of it. I'm shocked by the recklessness of it. I have 4 children. I have a vested interest in this country and in this world. And anyone who takes the threat of nuclear war lightly is my enemy. And that would include most world leaders. How do you consider them enemies for that? This implicates me and you and every person in this room. And we sit back and we're like, and you think I'm some sort of like hippie peacenik or something, or some left-wing green or something. No, I'm not. But if I'm an American right-winger, but I've got children. And if you're risking the future of the world and their lives,
but what's
against you,
Mr. Carlson, what's interesting here is, from my perspective, is that Trump was more or less always on your side in the past months. He was criticizing Zelensky. He was, talking to Putin. He said very friendly words about Putin. So he was never really pressuring. So, and this has changed in the past week. So why is that? I mean, couldn't it be that you were...
I don't accept the premise of the question because I don't know that it's true.
Why?
And I would say, well, you're showing up at my house on a day when we are literally right in the middle of this. And I don't understand exactly what's going on. I don't know how much of it is true. I will just say this. In our government, as in every government, I was trying to explain this about Putin or any world leader, there are constituencies that are fighting all the time to gain primacy, to gain control. And in Washington, the biggest battle in Washington, this has been going on for over 20 years since 9/11, has been between the realists and the neocons, or whatever you want to call them, people who believe in preserving the American empire through force, who think you can bring democracy and a better life through killing people, and those who doubt that.
But let's talk about facts, Mr. Carlson.
Conversation's ongoing, so I don't know what the hell is going on.
But wait, there's one fact. Trump said you have 50 days. He said it to Putin. Otherwise, there will be sanctions. There's also a fact that he said, okay.
Sanctions?
Well, yeah.
So for the first time, we're going to levy some sanctions on Russia.
Well, I'm just saying that what Trump said. Well, he said that for every country doing business with Russia, there will be 100% tariffs.
So that means if Russia, because Russia's, of course, economy is not it actually is quite a robust manufacturing economy, but it's still it's an oil and gas economy to some large extent, mineral economy. If the Indians and the Chinese, the two biggest buyers of oil, period, but certainly from Russia, if we catch them buying Russian oil, we will sanction them for that. That is that's my understanding of the threat. I have no idea if that will happen. I mean, we're in a period where there are a lot of abrupt changes. I think if the United States government were to attempt to do something like that, we would merely reveal, as we have consistently for the last 25 years, the limits of our power. And that, to me, is a big part of the tragedy since 9/11, particularly the Iraq War, but also what we've done all around the world since then, is that the second things become kinetic, the second you actually use force rather than just threaten force, and I would include sanctions as an expression of force. Sanctions are an act of violence, of course, against the civilian population mostly, but whatever. You reveal how powerless you really are. You think, in other words, when you're, if you say to your kids, if you do that, I will spank you, your child lives in fear of being spanked, and that will, one hopes, keep him on the straight and narrow, keep him from doing a bad thing. But when you actually spank a child, or if you ever spanked as a child, I don't know if spanking is allowed in Germany, except sexually, but in a parental context, when you spank a child, the child feels the pain and then realizes, I'll survive this. It's not as bad as you thought it was. And that was one of the stories that I hoped to tell when I was in Russia. We levied sanctions against Russia that have no precedent. We just stole people's stuff. People had nothing to do with the Russian government. The oligarchs who had nothing to do with the invasion of Ukraine, some of whom opposed the invasion of Ukraine publicly. And we just stole their stuff, billions of dollars worth of real estate and boats and airplanes. We just stole it and called it sanctions. Well, talk about the end of the rule of law. But hold on, let me finish. And what was the net effect? Did Russia fall into dire poverty? No.
But
they're fine. So we look weak.
But it looks like that your president is highly frustrated by Putin. That's what he's saying. He's saying publicly that he's on the phone with him, and then he comes back to his wife, to Melania, and he says, look, I had a really good phone call with Putin. And then she says, oh, really? He just bombed again another city in Ukraine.
Yeah, well, there's a war going on. Yeah, that's what happens when war cities get bombed. That's why I'm against wars. But negotiations are really frustrating. They're frustrating with your wife. They're frustrating with Vladimir Putin. It's frustrating because you don't get everything you want.
But he changed his...
It takes a while. People get frustrated. They make threats. Do they make good on those threats? I don't know. Not always. I don't make good on all my threats. Try not to make too many threats. But when I do, I don't always make good on them. And that may be the case here. But I think it's important to recognize that diplomacy is really difficult. That's why it's so rare. But when the option is nuclear war, it's worth doing.
What are the options from your perspective right now?
The United States is running out of options in Russia. Because the truth is, the Russian economy is not what we thought it was. And we were assured by some of the dumbest people on the planet who currently serve in the United States Senate that Russia was merely, and I'm quoting now, a gas station with nuclear weapons. They somehow kind of never built St. Petersburg, and Tolstoy and Dostoevsky didn't exist. And they were just this kind of desert nation with a lot of gas and weapons. I mean, it was absurd. So we underestimated and frankly just didn't really understand the nature of the Russian economy, Russian civilization. And I'm not endorsing that economy or civilization. I'm just saying we didn't understand what it was. And so we levied these sanctions on, we cut them off, kick them out of SWIFT. And we, in the end, hurt ourselves more than we hurt Russia. We sent a very clear signal to the rest of the world. And you guys are implicated in this also in Germany and in Europe more broadly because the US dollar is relevant to you. We sent a very clear message to everybody. Don't hold your assets in dollars because they can be used as a political weapon. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. If you want to hurt yourself, do that. And I think it's just been a tragedy. So does that leave us with kind of like, what options does that leave us with? It doesn't really. Russia fundamentally, they don't want everything they wanted. I'm not even sure what they wanted. They wanted the West to back off. But in some basic way, they won. And we have to acknowledge that. And it's really hard for I'm not in favor of Russia winning anything. I'm American. I want to win. But that you can't lie to yourself. They won. And so on the basis of...
In which way did they win?
They took land and they don't have to give it back. And short of bombing them with nuclear weapons, we can't make them give it back. That's called victory. And the victor gets to set, not all the terms, but as Germany found out, a lot of the terms. So, okay, those are the rules. Those are the rules not of international law, but of life. The winner gets to set the terms. Again, not all the terms, but he gets more say than the loser does. And Ukraine is the loser. Now, I feel sorry for Ukraine. I feel sorry for Ukrainians who, like many populations around the world, have learned the hard lesson, which is you follow the kind of fickle, mercurial dictates of the US government and you get killed. And nobody kind of runs to the rescue. You know, when Muammar Gaddafi, who was a bad guy, I'm not pro Gaddafi, but when he followed directions and gave up his weapons of mass destruction, we sent NATO in to kill him. Okay. So anyway, I feel sorry for the Ukrainians, but the truth is Zelensky, who I think is a legitimately bad person, but even if I loved him, doesn't matter. He doesn't get to set the terms because he didn't win. And unless you start there, you're not going to reach an outcome short of nuclear war, period. So you have to start there.
So what would Trump do then?
I have no idea what Trump will do. I hope that he listens to his own instincts. I hope that this is what I really hope, and for your leaders too in Europe. Let's start with what could happen. Let's assess the risk first. This is how I spend my money. It's how I invest my money. It's how I try to live my life. Start with the downside. What if things went totally wrong? What would it look like? And in this case, the Earth's population would be killed. Billions of people would die.
But was this argument...
So we're not doing that. Let's just start that. We're not doing that. Anybody
Mr. Carlson, with this argument, you could also say, okay, next country is the Baltics, the next one is Poland, and then Germany comes. And we could all say, okay, Russia won, we give you everything. I mean, this argument...
Okay. So, let's just be rational just for 1 second. I know Putin's bad and Zelensky's good.
No, but I mean,
that aside.
Just to explain. So if it's a threat that, for example, Putin would say we nuke you, would mean, okay, we give you all the land, then it means that it's not only Ukraine, it would be all the countries. So, I mean, this argument is...
very frustrating, and I agree. Let me just agree with you for the first time in this conversation by saying that it's extremely frustrating to have to acknowledge that the people with the biggest weapons have more power than those without big weapons. Russia has more weapons than Latvia. Therefore, in real life...
But Latvia is in NATO.
Right. NATO. Right. I get it. But I'm just saying, I don't want Russia to invade any country, including Ukraine. I was against that. I didn't think it would happen, by the way. I was completely wrong. I went on television. I was like, oh, Putin will never do that. Well, then he did it like 2 days later. It made me look like an idiot, which I was. But I don't want that to happen again. I personally don't think they want Latvia. I don't think it's worth the trouble. They can barely control their own country. It's the largest country in the world. They have a massive Muslim...
Maybe you do the same mistake as before Ukraine.
I could be completely wrong. I've been wrong many times. But what I'm not wrong about is that the consequence of this going south is nuclear war. And nothing is worse than that, including taking Latvia, including taking Germany, including taking the United States, none of which I think is going to happen. But if it does, it's terrible. It's not as bad as a nuclear war. So let's start there. And anybody who can't say that out loud, including your absurd leaders in Europe.
So your argument would be, just to understand it right, so your argument would be, if there would be the risk of Russia nuking Germany, Latvia, whatever country in NATO, we should just say, okay, Putin, you love Dresden, here's Dresden, and maybe parts of Berlin, we give it to you?
It's so funny that you've bought that lie.
Which lie?
The lie that Russia has designs on Germany or the UK. That's literally the last thing. There's no evidence.
Well, I just take your argument and...
It's not. Look, the truth is there a million... I just realized I'm wearing German shoes.
Oh, throw them away quickly.
I'm literally wearing Birkenstocks. I did that as a gesture of respect. I didn't know this would be on camera, which is why I'm dressed so ludicrously. There are a lot of steps between here and there. All I'm saying is Russia won this particular war. You don't want the war to metastasize. You want to get out if you're a pro-Ukraine, which I'm not against Ukraine personally. You want to get out with minimal losses in Ukraine, both to population and of territory. And so let's work on the deal now. Let's work on the deal. How do we get out with as little damage, disruption to everybody, Germany, Ukraine, United States, Russia too? How do we get out with as little damage as possible? That's called a negotiation. What you don't want to do is torque up the rhetoric and the fear, dealing with paranoid Eastern Europeans, and they're all paranoid. I say this with love.
Putin doesn't want to negotiate. I was in Istanbul when he was sending some, I don't know, whatever minister. Well, it looked like...
Man, you guys will believe anything.
Well,
Germany.
I was there.
Why was he dealing with Steve Witkoff the other day?
Well, I mean, I was there.
And what does Putin want? He just wants to take over all of Europe. He's Hitler.
Let's stay. No, wait. Let's stay with the. Let's stay with the negotiations.
Blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Okay.
Let's stay with the negotiations. So I was in Istanbul when there was the negotiations happening. So and Ukraine sent a lot of at least ministers and defense minister, and Putin sent people they were even laughing about in Russia and were saying, look, I mean, this doesn't look like serious negotiations.
Okay. I don't know if they were serious or not. There's a dance that accompanies all negotiations. There was, I think, by all accounts, every account, a potential early settlement 6 months into this war, as you know, that was stopped by the Biden administration using its cutout Boris Johnson, the former prime minister of the UK, in a contemptible, dishonest manner. And more than 1 million people died as a result of that. Russia was, I think, never met anyone who disagrees with this, willing to negotiate a settlement. Maybe a settlement Ukraine wouldn't want or NATO wouldn't.
You mean in March 2022?
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, March, April 2022. That's, yeah. The Boris Johnson story, and yeah.
That's a real story.
Yeah.
So look, there are plenty of head fakes. There's a lot of lying, a lot of bluffing in any negotiation. I'm willing to sell it for this, but actually my real number's that. I mean, that's what a negotiation is, right? That's why you have diplomats who sit down. I mean, the Vietnam War, which went on for 11 years, was, the negotiations went on for years. It's hard, but the option is nuclear war. So you have to put that on a piece of paper and stick it to your refrigerator so you see it every single morning. If we fail, we all die.
Yeah, but that means we all should be afraid every day and think about nuclear war.
Well, I don't know if we should be afraid every day. We should be aware of it every day.
But we could also be aware that the U.S. and other...
What you're doing, you're repeating the company line, and everyone in Germany says the same thing. And again, it keeps them from fomenting a rebellion against their own leaders, who are the ones who have actually betrayed them.
Oh, come on.
But your leaders have screwed you. And mine have screwed me too. So, but whatever. You're not alone. The threat of nuclear war is the greatest threat, period. I mean, there may be other things I don't know about, but that right now is the largest demonstrated threat that we face. So we want to always, as much as we want to prevent countries or disincentivize countries from invading their smaller neighbors, I agree with you 100% there. We don't want that. I don't want Russia to roll into Latvia. I don't know what they would do with it, but I don't want that. But we have to remember that it's not as simple. It will never be as simple as just defending this one principle to the exclusion of all other principles or consequences. That's just not how life is. And if you fuck around too much, you could die. So don't. That's the point.
I want to understand again. Yeah, sorry. Sorry. It's not a show. I always do that.
I love it. I'm just enjoying it.
Maybe.
And I feel like you're starting to agree with me.
Not really. But I'm trying to understand you, but I'm not agreeing. Let's keep it that way.
I agree that nuclear war is something we should be afraid of.
Well,
don't understand
wait.
that.
No, what I'm not agreeing to is that we should be so afraid that Putin can do whatever he wants.
I'm not making that argument. I'm hardly making that argument. I'm saying acknowledge the limits of your power to determine what Putin does or doesn't do. You're not in charge of what Putin does, actually. Putin's in charge of what Putin does. This is called reality. And so all you can do is provide incentives, provide disincentives, see how they work. But you're not in charge, actually. That's the point.
So I was with our leader you dislike, Friedrich Merz. I was with him in...
Dislike? I just have total contempt for what he's doing.
I was with him when he visited Trump in the Oval Office, and, they were sitting next to each other and talking, and they also talked about Ukraine. And since then, that's my feeling, all the leaders, Macron, Starmer, Merz, Tusk, they all tried to kind of push Trump into a different direction than he was. I mean, like if we see how it was with Zelensky in the Oval Office some months ago. And from their perspective, it looked like it worked. Would you agree on that?
I don't know. I can't really assess it. I just can't get past. I just want to ask you a quick question since I've been doing all the talking. Do you think that, here's the sense I get. I get the sense that most Germans, most Europeans, but you're Germans, I'll say German. Most Germans are angrier at Putin than they are at their own leaders.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it depends. I mean, you have some parts you could see, for example,
letting in all the migrants has made Germany better?
The majority would say no.
Okay. Did Putin do that? No.
Well, but people wouldn't compare these both things. I think that's...
They would say
what does the war in Ukraine have to do with the migration crisis in Germany?
Well, it has nothing to do with it. That's kind of the point I'm making. I think it's essential for adults to create their own hierarchy of concerns. What do I actually care about? They're the things I'm told I must care about by the people in charge. And they're telling me that maybe for their own reasons, maybe because they're benefiting from it. And there are things that actually matter to me. How much money do I make? What are my neighbors like? Can my kids get married and have kids? Is the park filled with garbage? Stuff like that. That is of real concern to people. And I think once you start looking at the latter category, not what the TV tells you have to care about, not what Merz tells you have to care about, but what you actually do care about, you will find that your enemy is not Vladimir Putin. He didn't fill the park with garbage or migrants. Angela Merkel did. And Merz is continuing to do it. And so they're the enemies. They're the ones who have made your life worse. That's all I'm saying. And I just wonder if there's anyone in Germany who sees that clearly.
Well, I mean, if you see the success of the AfD, especially in the eastern part of Germany, I think there's many people who are very upset about what Angela Merkel did in the past. If you see the migration crisis, I think people are upset. But at the same time, I mean, I think people can be upset about several things at the same time. So, I mean, they can be upset about, if they are, about what happened.
Well, I'm living proof. I'm upset about 100 things.
Yeah, I can feel that.
No, of course.
I can feel that.
All I'm saying is the amount of energy, proportionally, the amount of public debate in Germany. I'm not an expert on, I don't speak German.
Well, there was a lot of public debate about
There's
migration.
a lot more public debate about Putin than there is about Syrian refugees. A lot more. And in fact, if you complain too much about Syrian refugees, you can get in trouble, as you know. Like, that's not acceptable. You are not invited to complain about the physical reality of the degradation of your country by immigrants. Germany's been made a much less attractive, safe, and affluent country because of mass migration. It's obvious as a visitor. You are not invited to say that. If I say that in a school, in a church, in an office in Germany, people are not like, oh, tell me more. They're like, why are you saying that?
Well, I would say you find a lot already. I mean, you can see that what I just mentioned. I think
it's like declared a Nazi party. They tried to make it illegal, or was that not true?
Well, it's our Verfassungsschutz, so-called. So, and now there is, it's in court right now.
So the people who hate Nazis are using the secret police to make their political opponents illegal? How does that work?
No.
I hate Nazis.
No,
or I'm going to use the government, people with guns, to make you shut up because I hate Nazis so much.
Okay.
It's like the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. That's how much I hate Nazis. Shut up or I'll shoot you.
So we could see many U.S. politicians reacting on that. J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio.
That is funny, though. Do you hate Nazis enough to shoot someone who disagrees with you?
If I hate Nazis enough to shoot them? No, I would never shoot anybody. No,
and I'm just saying, like, if you're against Nazis, which I strongly am, then you want to see the maximum amount of political debate, free speech, individual choice, I get to decide who I support, whether you like it or not. That's what a democracy is. And anyone who's saying, no, you don't, the people you like are a threat to me, I'm going to ban them. Who's on the Nazi side?
There has been a lot of public debate about what J.D. Vance said about, public speech in Germany that was also...
But why does it take J.D. Vance to start the debate in Germany? Why don't people say, hey, maybe the lesson of the Second World War is authoritarianism doesn't work. Maybe we should stop doing it. And maybe if most people don't want migrants in the country, why don't we kick them out? Why can't we have an open debate about this? Why are we forcing people to be quiet?
There is an open debate about it.
They're trying to ban the party that talked about it just a little bit. By the way, I didn't think AfD talked about it enough. That's the issue. You change the population in a country, you change the country. The Germanic peoples are the dominant peoples of Western Europe, okay? Most productive I'm not just because I'm related to them, but I think they're the most impressive. And they are being replaced from people from somewhere else.
They're not being replaced. That's not true.
Well, of course they're being replaced. If Germany is on track to become majority less German in the next 100 years, I think, unless those numbers are fake, if the current German birth rate continues alongside the current inflow of people who are not German, it will not be a majority German country in 100 years. I think that's right. I mean, you can correct me on the numbers if I'm wrong. If that is true, that is by definition replacement. The people who lived there 100 years ago are no longer the dominant majority. That's replacement. New people are the dominant majority. That's literally the definition of replacement. And the fact that it makes you so uncomfortable that I'm saying that tells me that it's time to free your mind and just say things that are true regardless.
Well, you've been saying this now 10 times that I'm not uncomfortable.
I'm encouraging you.
I came here to listen to you.
I also want it to be a learning experience. It's not just like...
Well, I tried.
To go to the lair of the world's most dangerous podcaster.
No, it's not.
Let's make it a kind of... Socrates and Aristotle.
But we did that in terms of Russia and Ukraine, I think. That was very interesting to understand.
Ukraine is interesting and important to the extent that we're risking the extermination of humanity with a global nuclear war. Okay, that's why it's interesting. I have a bunch of other non-interesting views on it, okay, that I'm not even worth talking about, just like my preferences or whatever. They're probably dumb. And you probably don't agree, so it doesn't matter. But the big questions do matter. Do we have a nuclear war? Is Germany majority non-German in 100 years? How is that not a big question? And I'm saying the biggest questions are not only ignored, they're discouraged. You are not encouraged to ask the questions that actually matter. Will Germany be majority German in the next 100 years? And people would say, what does it mean to be majority German? I don't know. Your ancestors lived here 500 years ago or 5,000 years ago. You're the indigenous population. Are you being replaced? Shut up. You can't use the word replacement. I can say whatever I want, actually, because I'm a free man, not your slave. And I want you to answer the question. Why is that not important? I think it is demonstrably important. And by the way, if it were happening in Fiji or Malaysia or China or India, I would say the same thing.
Well,
why destroy a people?
Yeah,
I don't.
But you said that there is not enough discussion about migration policy.
They tried to ban AfD for talking about it. They're
not. Well, but they're not
dangerous extremists. This is a democracy.
They're not banning them. This is not true.
Right now?
Well, they're in court because there is the Verfassungsschutz, the German.
The enforcement.
Yeah, and so they researched or investigated and said, that the AfD is a fascist party, like we could say that, right? Fascist party.
What does it mean to be fascist?
Well, it means from their perspective, there's people inside the AfD who said this or who said that. There's a big document.
What's the definition of fascism?
Well, they say that it's against German law, what they said, in terms of right wing. There's different examples of public speeches, what they said inside. But this doesn't mean that they're banning them. Banning them means...
What it means is you're not allowed to say certain things. You're not allowed to have certain opinions in Germany. They're illegal. They're against German law. You just said that. And that tells me conclusively that you do not live in a democracy, no matter what you tell yourself. It's a democracy. We elect people, lawmakers. We've got our chancellor. It's not a democracy unless the average person, the average citizen, the average German can say what he thinks. If he's not allowed to say what he thinks, then he has no power. He has only fake power. If you can't say what you really think, what really matters to you, what you actually believe, whether I agree with it or not, then you are not a citizen. You are a slave. No different than German citizens were slaves at other periods in German history. And I'm just saying It's important, if you're going to pretend to be a democracy, to actually be one. That's all I'm saying. Don't you agree with that?
Well, I mean, there is laws, there is,
But the laws themselves are illegitimate, and they give lie to the claim that you're a democracy. If the ruling party can pass laws banning criticism of the ruling party, how is that better than Putin's Russia? It's not. And the one way that Putin's Russia is better is that people in Russia really like Russia, actually. And people in Germany will never say, I love Germany.
Oh, there's many people saying that.
Really, they'll say, I'm really proud of my German heritage. I've never heard, I hope every German feels that way because you have so much to be proud of. Take out the Nazi period. I think you can be really proud of what Germany has given to the world, maybe more than any other country, actually. In fact.
Yeah, but because what happened in the Nazi period, I mean, there is our history, we still have to deal with our history. We shouldn't forget about it. And because of what happened in our history with the NSDAP coming up, with the Nazi party coming up, there is laws in Germany, and our idea is that what happened in 1933 should never happen again.
I agree.
So that's the reason why a so-called Verfassungsschutz
By the way, I mean, look, this is not my business, but just as like a historical matter, I think that Nazi period.
I want to say something very clear. I think it's a total wrong idea to ban the AfD. I'm totally against it, because I agree that, you can't ban a party where 23% or 25% of the people, voting for.
You can't ban a party with 1/10 of 1%. You can't ban parties. You can't ban ideas. You have to outcompete them. If my idea is wrong, tell me how. You have to treat me like a human being, not a slave. Tell me how it's wrong. Convince me it's wrong. Show me. Offer me incentives. But you can't force me. And if you force me, by the way, it doesn't work. As you just said, it doesn't work. Part of the reason that someone as grotesque as Hitler was able to take power in a country as advanced as Germany is because the German people were totally degraded by the settlement after World War I. You know this. And their land was stripped, and they had foreign troops. They sent African troops, as you know, to degrade the Germans. And the Germans hated that, and I understand why. And unfortunately, their hate and resentment built to the point where they elected Hitler. That's the actual lesson of it. And I say that as someone who's very anti-Hitler.
Well, but that sounds like there's not a German fault. I mean, that sounds like something happened before.
I'm not. Of course, it's the Germans' fault for electing Hitler. I'm not. This is, again, the childish level of discussion about everything that has led us to the brink of nuclear war and the destruction of Western Europe, is that no one can have an honest conversation.
Well, we have that, I think.
I'm trying. So, no, I'm not stripping the Germans of their war guilt. They have war guilt. I get it. I'm just saying, how did the war start in the first place? How did they elect Hitler in the first place? Why would a country, and I often learned this as a child, like the shocking thing about the Nazi party was it happened in Germany. And so many of the Jewish refugees who came to the United States from Germany were like the most impressive people. And I remember reading stuff they're like, I can't believe this happened in Germany. I served in the First World War. I love Germany. I'm German. I was this famous scientist. I had to move to New York. Like, it's a very familiar thing, right? The whole point was it happened in a country as evolved as Germany, the most evolved country. How did that happen? Nobody asks. And it's important to know because you don't want it to happen again. And I know that there are many causes of this and every other historical event, but one of the ways that it happened was more than a decade of degradation convinced the people they had no option but to do something radical and crazy like elect Hitler, a non-German, to run their country. That's all I'm saying. And so I'm just saying there's a long-term cost to degrading people and not allowing them to say what they think. And one of the costs is they can become super radical and crazy if you keep it up. Super radical and crazy. And I'm not saying that's going to happen in Germany. I'm just saying that happens with people. You know what I mean? You have to treat them like human beings. You can't ban their parties.
What I don't understand, if we talk about the US right now and what their focus, because I'm more foreign policy expert or crisis, or I'm more out of Germany, so I like to talk about Ukraine and Israel and Iran.
What happened to the North Stream pipeline?
Yeah, stuff like that as well. So I would be really interested to understand, because you talk to a lot of people, not only Trump, but also to J.D. Vance, to many others. So to everybody, which is great. Absolutely. So
it's not considered great. It's considered naughty.
Really? In the U.S.?
Oh, yeah. I don't care. I'm kind of off the internet at this point. I don't ever read criticism or praise.
You're off the internet?
well, I'm not. You can't be off the internet, but I really try not to go on social media. I try to get my information from people because I think it's better. But there's a lot of pressure in the United States, and it's overwhelming in Germany as well, and throughout Europe, to not talk to people you disagree with or who are bad. And I just feel like that is not the way to knowledge or wisdom. You want to talk to as many people as you can.
I totally agree on that. So talking about J.D. Vance, do you think he agrees on what Trump is doing in terms of Putin, in terms of Iran?
I don't strictly speaking know the answer, so I can't give it. I'll just make a couple obvious points. I love J.D. Vance. I think he's a really decent man. He's very smart in a true sense, not in a glib, facile, fake politician sense where he can elide past the question and bullshit you into moving on to the next question. He's not that guy. He's like a genuinely reflective, deep person with a lot of wisdom for a man as young as he is. So I really admire J.D. Vance. He's the vice president of the United States. So at this point, it doesn't kind of matter. Just the way that, I don't know how much you know about how our government is structured, but the vice president receives as many votes as the president. So he has the legitimacy, the moral legitimacy of the president. He has the people's expressed will backing him up. Democracy is working. But he does not have constitutionally the authority to make any decisions at all, like really any. And certainly not on foreign policy. It's the commander-in-chief, it's the executive, it's the one guy, it's the president who makes those decisions. And he makes them constitutionally, under our constitution, he makes them unilaterally. The president says this, we're doing it. The military has to follow him.
You know him very well, but how does he take this decision, Trump, in terms of Iran bombing the facilities, in terms of Ukraine, Putin giving this ultimatum 50 days? Who are the people around him you think convince him to do this or to do that?
Well, I've said this publicly, and of course I would begin with the caveat that I don't work there. I can't know.
But you know people.
Everything. Well, I can't know most things, and I don't. But my strong impression is that the president listens to a lot of people on every topic, which I like about him very much. But I think on foreign policy questions, particularly recently, do we use force against this or that Muslim country? I think the pressure to do that, or the voices trying to convince him to do that, are coming from outside of the administration. I think that's true. That's my impression.
Who's outside? What do you mean?
People he knows, people he's in touch with, talk show hosts. I mean, I actually at one point produced a list of
Sean Hannity?
People I thought, I like Sean Hannity. I'm not attacking Sean Hannity, but clearly Sean has different foreign policy views. I know that from mine, for sure, and it speaks to the president a lot. But not just him, other people the president knows, and donors, and like Perlmutter, and whatever. Rupert Murdoch has been a consistent voice urging more military action against this, that, or another country. And I think, I don't really understand that. But I know that he is calling the president multiple times a week to urge
to attack.
Just kill more people in some other country because for whatever reason.
When did that happen? Recently, or when you were
That's
at
been
Fox?
ongoing. As far as I know, I think Rupert Murdoch has been one of the most aggressive voices in the president's ear. There are lots of voices in the president's ear. Doesn't mean he's taking orders from Rupert Murdoch. But all I'm saying is there's a chorus of people, this is true in every administration, weighing in on behalf of their own views or some constituency. The president should do this, and they speak to his advisors, and in some cases they speak directly to him. And I do think, to his credit, Trump speaks to a broader palette of people than most presidents. I've never known a lot of presidents. I've never seen one take as much advice, counsel from as many different people. And I think that's good, actually, in general. But because it gives you perspective of what's happening outside the White House. You're very cut off from the world. Any president is. But my impression is that the push toward war in Russia and in the Middle East has come mostly from outside the White House. Normally it's like the National Security Advisor is insane and he wants to bomb this or that group. I don't know if that's true. I could be wrong, but that's my impression.
Where does J.D. Vance stand?
J.D. Vance is the vice president, and I there's always this terrible tension between president and vice president, especially a president who's in his final term, as this president is, where, the vice president's always tempted to act in the service of his own political ambitions and undermine the president. J.D. Vance has not done that at all. At all. At all. And everything the president has said, the vice president has said, I support that. What can I do to help you? So that's been, Trump is blessed to have a vice president like that from my perspective. I do think, though, it's not about Trump or J.D. Vance, but the United States has fought a lot of wars since 1945, dozens and dozens and dozens, all of them undeclared, most of them small. And I can't think of any, and maybe I'm missing something, that have made the United States better off, that have helped the American people, that have made the country richer, that have made the country more cohesive, which is one of the main goals of leadership, is to bring cohesion. You want your people to get along in the way that you want your children to get along. This country is less cohesive than it's ever been. And I think the cycle has accelerated in the last 10 years. And as our country declines, it becomes poorer and more at war with itself. I think we have become more aggressive outside of our borders. And I do see a connection between the two. I don't fully understand it. And I'll just stop with this. I think it has to do with what our leaders care about. And it's some of the problems that advanced Western societies face are very complex. There's no obvious answer, whether they're problems with energy or the way the money is distributed. What is your economy? These are the basic questions that any society faces. And they're hard to fix these problems. What do you do about the millions of people from other countries living in your country who aren't assimilating, and the population was born here is mad, they're mad? How do you fix that? It's hard. I will give them credit. It's hard. And so there is a temptation to spend your time on problems that you think you can solve. And almost all of those are outside your borders. And so I certainly noticed this with Mertz and with you, frankly, no offense, but also with our journalists here in the United States and our lawmakers here. They're so focused on Ukraine, for example. There's a good guy versus a bad guy, and let's make this right. And I think there's a lot of good faith behind that. I'm not attacking them. I understand why they feel that way. It's a lot easier to spend your time on something you think can actually work, to take the side of a group you think is actually good, because you don't know that much about them. You don't speak the language. You're not from there. So it's easy to imagine they're really good and their opponents are really bad, when in truth, the reality is always much more complex, but you don't know that because you're not from there. And in the process, ignore the things you're actually responsible for, which is the condition of your own country and your own people. I do think that's what's happening in the United States. I know it's happening in Europe because it's easy to see it from the distance. And I think that if that continues, there will be revolutions in these countries, because the people of these countries have been really mistreated by their leaders, really mistreated. I think the people of Europe have been far more mistreated by their own leaders than they ever have been by Putin. And when they realize that, I worry about Europe.
Will J.D. Vance be the next president after Trump?
Gosh, I sure hope so. I do. I don't know everything I'm not an advisor to J.D. Vance, but I want to say that. When
did you talk to him the last time?
Oh, years ago. I've never met him.
Really?
I just want to be clear. Of course I've met J.D. Vance, but I think, unlike J.D. Vance, I don't have a political future ahead of me. I don't work for anybody. I can say whatever I want. My children are grown. There are no restrictions on my ability to say what I think is true. And so as a result of that, I'm considered wildly controversial.
But if you're so concerned,
I don't want
Mr. Carlson,
to be used to hurt J.D. Vance. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
But if you're so concerned as you are, and I can feel it, and how you see the problems, and from your perspective in the U.S., in Europe, but also in the world, so why are you not considering running? I understood.
I'm doing what I think God made me to do, which is just to talk. I have no power. I don't want any power. I just sit in a chair and another thing. I'm just like another middle-aged guy with an opinion, but we happen to have cameras in my barn so other people can hear my opinion. That is what I was made for. It's what I've always done. And one of the reasons I'm happy is because I just keep going back to this, but I recognize my own limits.
Would you have a chance if you run? There's people saying that.
I'm not going to run.
But if you would
God
run,
would have to show up on my house and tell me to run, in which case I would. I don't think it's going to happen.
So anything could happen that you run?
No. I don't want to run. I'm not suited for it. And I have a happy life because I don't imagine that some entirely different career awaits me, or I really should be doing something else. If I thought I should be doing something else, I'd be doing it. I'm doing exactly what I like doing, what I think I'm made to do, what I'm decent at doing, what I've always done. I don't feel like, oh man, I really want to be a fireman or a senator from Arkansas or something. I don't want that. I don't think. Do you know what I mean? I hope you feel it. That's the greatest blessing, is to feel happy. I like my wife. I like where I live. I like my dogs. I like my kids. I'm like pretty happy with everything. I don't feel like, shit, I wish I had a plane. I really need a plane or whatever. I need a country, or if only I could like bomb Syria, that would like make me feel whole. I'd forget my own impotence if I bombed Syria. I don't feel that way.
But it could be that, that you get so upset about things that you feel like you want to not only talk about, but you want to change things.
Well, that's what they all convince themselves. I want to be a player. I want to be in charge. And I think I was really blessed at a very young age, like in high school, because of my father. We lived in D.C. I was around a lot of that. You know what I mean? I had lunch at the White House in high school. And I'm not bragging. I'm just the opposite. It's like the more you're around that stuff, you realize it's just people doing their best, and some cases not doing their best, but it's not anything magic. And I'm just not that impressed by power. I think that's my great advantage in life, is I've been around it a lot. And I've been around it so much that I don't have any illusions about it. I'm not impressed by it at all. I don't hate everyone with power, but I'm not going to kiss their ass. I don't think they're Jesus.
So
I think they're Jesus. I disagree.
So if you're not running, and maybe JD Vance is running, but right now,
JD Vance is running.
But right now, it looks like the MAGA movement is kind of divided in terms of foreign policy, what to do, but also internal stuff. We haven't talked about Epstein and the Epstein case.
Call him Epstein.
Epstein? Why?
Because I love the German pronunciation.
Epstein.
Is that how it's?
Yeah.
I didn't know him, thank heaven.
So what is going on inside the MAGA movement right now?
Oh boy, I have no idea. What we do know is there was this guy who got indicted twice, convicted once of sex crimes. And he was a sex weirdo. Lots of those. I worked in television. I know quite a few. So we know that. What we don't know is, what was he doing and how did he get hundreds of millions of dollars? He didn't apparently execute any trades on Wall Street. He was not a trader. Didn't work on Wall Street. So where'd the money come from? And what was the point of this? And he had heads of state and high-level political leaders in his house all the time. And there was sex involved, and there are a lot of allegations, which may or may not be true. I can't assess that, about what he was doing and why, and we don't have answers on that. And I think we know enough that people are insistent on getting answers. And then there's a question of, how did he die? It's pretty clear he did not kill himself.
Do you think Trump is nervous about it? We can see his tweets and his.
I don't know. I can't say, but I can say that normal people, non-crazy people, have a great desire to know these answers, and I think have an expectation that they're due these answers. It's their right to know. Their government was involved. And I also think, bigger than that, and this is something that maybe not everyone at the White House understands, though I think they will, it's a metaphor. It represents something bigger than it is. Like I personally don't think, the fate of nations rises or falls on the questions of Jeffrey Epstein. I just don't, okay? But I do think the fate of nations rises and falls on the question of who's really in charge, who's making these decisions and why. Like, that is the fate of nations, that question, right? So there is a widespread belief in the United States, and it's true, it's rooted in reality, that a lot of this is fake. Like, it's an illusion. Like, why can't we know? In our system, the people rule. We have a representative democracy in which we elect people to work on our behalf, but it's our behalf. They're working on it. They work for us. We own this country. We're shareholders. We're not just passing through. We're not renting it. We own it. That's the American system. And so if you can't get a straight answer from your government about what the government's doing, and there's clearly no national security implication, shut up. Some pedophile, how is that a national security question? It's not. Then you start to wonder, like, what the hell is this? Who's running it? And Donald Trump ran for president on the promise that he would tell us and that he would end corruption in Washington. Now, that's a big promise. Every large organization is corrupt by its nature. DC is the largest organization, therefore it's the most corrupt. That's just a fact. So can one man fix that? No. But you have to make a good faith effort. And so people understood that when Trump got there, and they voted for him for this reason, that they would learn what their government was doing, not just about Epstein, and not just about JFK or RFK or MLK or the historic murders that are still unsolved, but about, like, where does all the money go? Why is the Pentagon getting $1 trillion? Where does that money go exactly?
So Trump supporters disappointed?
I don't know. Look, I think my impression is that I'm trying to be diplomatic here.
Yeah, I can feel that.
I'm trying, because this is,
well, with Trump, you're diplomatic. With the other topics, not that much.
Yeah, that's true. Because I know Trump.
So you would get furious if you're non-diplomatic?
Well, obviously, I don't care about that, or I wouldn't be talking to him in the first place. I'm not afraid of anybody, and I don't owe Trump anything, of course. But no, I know him well enough to know that, and have known him for so long, and I've talked to him so much that I know that he agrees fundamentally with the idea that the system is corrupt, and the way that it continues to be corrupt is through secrecy, and that you have to air the stuff. You have to tell people what's going on and take the hit, and that's okay. You know, we all screw up. There are things about me I seek to hide. Love pizza, or whatever, you know. And that's okay, but you have to be honest at a certain point, or it doesn't get better. That's just kind of a basic human principle, and I know that Trump agrees with that. And so if I'm being cagey, or I don't mean to be cagey, I don't really understand what the hell's going on. If I'm being honest, I really don't. And I haven't talked to him about it. I have called over there and asked what the hell's going on. I don't understand this. And by the way, I don't think Trump had anything to do with Epstein. He knew Epstein, but I would be sincerely shocked if there was some weird sex stuff with Trump. I just don't believe that. I've talked to Trump about it. I know him well.
What did he say?
He said, I think he said this publicly. He said Epstein was always in Mar-a-Lago freeloading and, hitting on the massage therapist, and he kicked him out. And
does this sound realistic to you?
It does. Whatever Trump sins, I have never gotten like a creepy vibe off him at all. And you ask any woman who's been around him, I was just asking one who's standing right there and knows him, you ever get a creepy vibe? Because women, no, they get the creepy vibe way better than men do, or at least than I do. And I've asked women, do you get a creepy vibe off Trump? You could smell it. If someone's got weird sex shit going on underneath the surface, I can smell it instantly. I don't know what you're into, but it's freaky. I know that. I'm not pointing that at you. I've never gotten that vibe off Trump at all. And every woman I've ever asked, didn't you say you didn't get that at all? Right. So I could be completely wrong, but I would be shocked. And by the way, this information, if it exists, would have been in the hands of the Biden administration during the last presidential campaign. You think they wouldn't have leaked Trump, whatever weird stuff? I don't think that's it. I really don't. Again, could be wrong, but I just don't believe it. And so what is this? And I don't really know. I mean, my sense is that you do get in a vacuum when you're at the top of whatever pyramid. And I don't think they fully understand how this is being read on the outside. But we're a few days into this, get back to me in a month and I'll have a better sense. We all have a better sense of what this is, but I think it's a big deal. I guess that's what I'm saying. Not because of Epstein, but because of what he represents.
So it's Epstein, it's Iran, it's Russia, Ukraine. What kind of shifts the MAGA movement, or?
Well, look, I mean, in the United States, people voted for Trump, not all, of course, but a lot of people voted for Trump with the sense that he's the only one who cares. So our country has, and you don't get this sense if you don't live here, but if you travel the country and you look carefully at the numbers, people are not having children. They're literally being replaced by immigrants. They can't afford anything. I mean, it's economically, parts of this country are much poorer than they were when I was a child. And so there's a feeling of abandonment and anger, justified anger. And those are Trump voters, for sure. You drive around here, you see a lot of Trump signs. That's the reason. The higher your death rate from opioids, I think this is true, you can check it, the higher the rate of vote for Donald Trump. So Trump got the vote of people who feel abandoned. And they have been abandoned, and it's provable. No one cares about them at all. What do they think of 25,000 Somalis moving into their town? Nobody asks them. Nobody cares. Just wreck their lives, wreck their schools, wreck their hospitals, destroy their community, and no one asks them what they think. Shut up, racist. That's the answer they get. How do you think they feel about that? How do you think the Germans that's happened to feel? They feel angry. And they like, I'm going to vote for AfD. Oh, it's banned. It's a Nazi party.
It's not banned.
They're in court because they had naughty opinions about how they were treated by their own fucking leadership.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying what's happening in Western Europe. I'm being mean to Germany, a country I really respect.
It's okay.
Well, you guys love it when people are mean to you. Smack me harder, daddy. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Right, that's so mean, but true. But anyway, that's Trump's base here. It's the same dynamic. It's people who've been abandoned by larger forces, geoeconomic forces. It's not all like bad people made mean decisions, but they didn't protect their people, okay? And those people are upset, and Trump is the expression of how upset they are. And he's really their last hope. And they like him. He's very likable. You know, I like him, so I can tell you that and firsthand. So if Trump doesn't work, if they feel like Trump abandoned them, that's the last train out, man. This is the last political solution to their problems. And so it's a big, big deal. If Trump is, and I don't know if this is true, but if he is seen as turning on his own voters who love him, that's profound. And I don't know what I hope that's not true, for one thing. I don't know that it is true. But if that is true, that's a profound thing. And I don't know what the consequences will be. I hope that's not true.
Mr. Carlson, thank you very much for your time. It was very interesting.
I won you over. I know part of you's like, oh, this is forbidden. I can't think this.
No.
Think this. It's so naughty.
No, I'm
right.
No. I'm sorry.
Well, I tried.
Think about it.
Think about it.
You tried hard. You tried hard.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Great to see you. Thank you very much.